Hello, Facebook world. Well, going with the flow is what life is about, isn't it? So I'm here, and my author, because she's on the road living the lifestyle in an RV, sometimes the internet doesn't work. So while she's getting set up, I am going to just share a few things about life. So, there was a time when I started becoming a minimalist, and I'm wondering if you thought about ever cutting back on things instead of spending more. So, Daphne's story actually is a little bit about that. And I know that I went through a series of events in life, and I'm sure some of you can relate to this, right? Where all of a sudden, maybe it's financial, maybe there's something else that goes on, but you realize you've got to look at what's really important. And I bet that's what this year is doing for a lot of us too, isn't it? Have you changed something in your life? Have you thought about, well, I need to cut back on something? Well, becoming a minimalist doesn't mean you have to give up everything, because I'm guessing that most of you would have a really hard time with that. However, in the story Beckoning Harmony, in the new book that's coming out real soon, Breakthrough, Wisdom of the Soul, and maybe you've seen some of our authors, and I do hope we can get Daphne on today once she's in the spot. Well, weather's affecting things and all of that. But Beckoning Harmony is one of the stories, one of eight. And if you haven't seen some of the author interviews, they're amazing. So I just want to, well, some of you come on and say hi, say hello. So we've got a real life thriller that will keep you on the edge of your seat. We have one that a parent hears those dreaded words from their child, I hate you. We have Daphne, a family that leaves their life of luxury to find harmony. And we have a battered and abused woman's story that was subjected to exorcism, along with many others. Oh, you're going to love it. There's so many great stories. So, anyway, minimalism. What does that mean to you? Well, I know that when I went through something really big in life about 22 years ago, it made me really reevaluate. So, I'm wondering if you're reevaluating life right now in any way, shape, or form. Hello, good morning. Thanks for coming on. And what that meant to me is I gave up a lot of things. I decided to sell practically everything I owned, and trust me, there were things that I didn't think I'd ever get rid of or give away. Matter of fact, some of my friends would say to me, "Are you sure you want to give this beautiful painting away, or this crystal, or whatever it was?" And I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "Well, if you ever want it back, you know where it is." But the funny thing is I never remembered where it was, because I found out that all these things that we hold on to, they're really not that necessary. And so when I was doing this and I was eliminating a lot of things, and really looking at and evaluating what's really important in life, what's important to you in life, okay? So when we're downsizing and we're looking at these important things, and again, I really think this year has done that very significantly for all of us. Hey, Dora. Hi, Michelle. Thanks for coming on, ladies. So we're talking about what's important in life, while Daphne somewhere is out there in the world. The gal who wrote Beckoning Harmony, trying to find internet, because sometimes, internet's important, and we don't realize that when we're traveling in an RV with our lifestyle, that sometimes it comes and goes. It does in my house too, right? So Daphne and her family decided to take a look at a new lifestyle. And they bought a nice size RV because she has several kids. And they started a new journey. And it was similar to what happened to me when I gave up a lot of things. So, how many of you have actually started a new journey in life, maybe this year? I know you did, Dora, right? So, a new journey, what can it bring for you? It can bring you what? Freedom. It can bring you fear. It can bring you new opportunities and acquaintances. So I would love to hear what a new journey, a new lifestyle brought to you when you decided to bring that into your life. Because we often think it's going to go really smooth, don't we? And even in her story, Beckoning Harmony, she's all excited when they finally make the decision after they went through a lot of hardships in life and some different tragedies. But our mindset, is going to determine what we accomplish, isn't it? So let's see what we got. Yeah, it sure did. So Dora, maybe you can tell us a little bit about what some of those things were. So I know that when I was making this major life challenge and not only getting rid of the majority of things in my life, but I also had to explore new things. And Daphne just popped on, so we're going to bring her on in a second. Okay. So I had to explore new things and new ways of doing things, and it didn't always go as smoothly, just like Dora's saying. And Daphne always also talks about that in her story. When my twins get a bit older, I want to do this. But you can still start downsizing. We can look at what's really important. And I think that's a big message, especially for 2020. So since Daphne got her internet, we're going to bring her on, say hello, and hear more about how and why she decided to take her life on the road. Okay. Hey, Daphne.
Hi.
Did.
Hello.
Thanks for joining us today.
Yes, I'm so glad to be here. Thank you. And I caught your little introduction and teaser, so I'm glad to hear that. And I'm glad to be here today to share a little bit why I did take myself and all of my kids and my dog on the road.
Well, I think it's great. And, in helping you with your story development, it was interesting to learn more about you, all the things you have gone through. Because sometimes when people think, oh, I'm just going to up and change my life and this is what I'm going to do and I'm excited about it, they think it's easy. We've got a comment here. Let me see. I took an on the journey of working as your assistant. It's taught me so far that I need to slow down my trigger. It has given me lots of joy and opportunity. Well, yeah, that's another type of journey. Absolutely. So people are coming on and saying hello to you. So we're really glad that you're here today, because I know that you have some valuable information to share with people. So Daphne actually is an RN and now officially an author, a midwife, a yoga instructor, a health coach and tutor. She does a lot of wonderful things out there. But my first question for you, Daphne, is what made you decide? Like what was going through your head to take a family, like to live in an RV? Like, what was happening up there? Because I know when I made my changes, I was one person. But you have how many kids?
Three right now. I had four,
Three.
but three are living in the home. So,
Wow. So three kids, your husband and you, and on the road you went. So what made
yeah.
you think about doing that?
Well, not to give away too much of my story, but I had some major life happenings and changes, career-wise and personally. I had a death of a child as well. So all of this brought me to this realization that our life is so short. What we focus on in this life is very fleeting. And that if I wanted to truly connect with my family, I needed to change something big time. And that's what I did. I took this big step, this big leap, and made this change where that as a family and myself to change my focus from being career focused and focused on all the wants of life, big homes and whatever we could get our hands on. And I knew that changing my focus from these outward results and as society puts on you these outward, being successful in a career, which is wonderful, but it's not your whole life. And I knew that I needed this change to make our family more connected. And living in a RV, less than 400 square feet will sure make you connect very quickly, be it good or bad. And, there's in my story, I do go into some of the struggles that we did have happen on the road because, taking that family dynamic from me being gone all the time, from me being home full time is very different. And then also having a huge home where we're separated all the time, and then where we have to learn to be together, to function together as a family, as a small unit. There's a lot that goes into it.
Yeah, so I have actually some questions for you about some of these different things that you're bringing up. So if we can kind of address them, it also help our audience understand some things.
Mhm.
First of all, you mentioned, some big life changes, including the death of your child. And I know that those were the reasons. Those were the reasons why I also went through similar things in life and looking at
Mhm.
what's important. The first one was when my brother died young. Okay.
Oh.
And it made me realize that the situation I was in a relationship, married and all, no matter how hard I was trying to make it work and fit into the norm of whatever that's supposed to be, I wasn't fulfilled and happy. And
Yeah.
it didn't matter if there was counseling or not. So when my brother died unexpectedly, not being sick, it also woke me up to that moment, that what is so important. It happened again 8 months later when my second brother died. So
Oh, wow.
then it's like, okay, so I got rid of this. Then it was like career oriented. And then
Mhm.
years later, it happened when my spouse died. And that was the big one. That was the one where I finally not only gave up relationships that weren't working, career that wasn't working, but I gave up the love,
Mhm.
knew it. And we had just built our dream home. So
Mhm.
I can relate to what you're talking about. So I want to ask you, what does one, or how does one give up the luxuries to become a minimalist?
Well, I wouldn't say that necessarily you're giving up anything because you gain so much more. It's just you're giving up physical items. And if you really think about it, these physical items, yes, some of them are tied to memories, but many of them are just things that we just randomly bought or thought we needed. Like, oh, that lamp looked great here. I'm just going to buy that. And so we get into this habit of doing this and not thinking. So I really think that we need to have a mindset of changing to more of a purposeful type of buying and collecting things. Over the years, I've only kept things that I really, truly loved and, brought joy to my life. And I'm very careful. I may see something I love in the store, but I always take a step back and think about it. I'm take those mindful process. I take some deep breaths. And I know that may sound funny about just trinkets and furniture and so forth and clothes, but it has an impact on our life. What we bring into our life is full of energy, whether we know it or not. So even just
Absolutely.
that pair of pants you bought at the store, that can change your setting energetically, and that has a lot to do with it. So when we release that and let that go, we allow and open up to new and better things. So even something as simple as a pair of pants can just be an amazing life change. It's little
Absolutely.
things that I found out, little things that can help you, and that's what small steps are always, I think, the best, and it's not such a shock. And it did take us a couple of years. I wrote about that as well, that it did take a couple of years to get to this step. It wasn't just something overnight. So
Mm-mm.
I don't expect anybody else just to say up and go, because there are steps that it does take
Right,
in
right.
the process. But
So I want to address something that I think that you said that was important. You asked yourself, does it bring you joy? And a lot of times when we become hoarders and shopaholics and stuff, we don't even think about how much joy is it really going to give us, and do we really need it or we want it? And I,
mhm.
when I was going through a lot of my shifts and changes too, I forget who actually had wrote it, probably some book I read along the way, but it said, is it going to really bring you long-term joy, not instantaneous gratification? Because,
Mhm.
oh, I got to have that, figurine or that crystal or that book or that blouse. I tend to be the blouse person now.
Mhm.
But years ago, I used to collect a lot of things, especially Christmas ornaments. Oh my
Yeah,
God.
I
When
was
I
too.
when I went through all my stuff, I had huge bins of Christmas ornaments.
Yes.
This is crazy. So I get what you're saying about that, and that's a really good tip for everybody. Is it going to bring you long-term joy?
Yeah.
And that's a good one. So I want to also ask you another question. What
Mhm.
life were you thinking about giving your children? Because in the book you talk about you grew up in a very messy, loud family with 5 girls and 2 boys, and you had a lot of fun. Okay. And you do go into more about the different things that you experienced in life and the luxury homes and the cars and all that. So what were you thinking going into a 400 square foot RV with 3 kids and a husband? What kind of life did you want to give your children? What were you thinking?
Well, I did think back to my childhood because, everyone's childhood isn't perfect, but there are moments that I look back and I hold dear to my heart. And those were the moments that we didn't spend money on doing things or gifts because a lot of times we didn't have that money. So my favorite memories were camping with the family. That was our vacation. And I wanted to bring that closeness to my children and to teach them that you don't need, a $5,000 vacation to enjoy yourself and your family. Just as simple as going down the street to the campsite is, something that can really be life changing and really connect. You're almost forced without that entertainment that you have, all the screens flashing and everything like that. And that's fine. That gets us through our day, like you and I are doing this now. And I love this technology. But many times we take the break from that. Yeah. And we went one step further. Instead of, the simple tent camping, we did get an RV, but we wanted it as a full-time lifestyle. So I wanted to go small, get our family connected, away from everything going on, away from obligations of, having to go to certain meetings and having to take your children into different sports related activities. And all those are wonderful. But I think sometimes we're so inundated with all these things and to do, we're always busy as well, that it's good to take a step back and again, really see and focus on what brings you joy and how to connect with your family. Children grow up very fast, and like you lost your spouse. Not that we want to live in fear of losing our loved ones, but just to make the most of it. When you die, you're not going to have your money, you want to leave a good memory to those that you love. And so if camping or RV travel is not your thing, think of something that is. Like I thought back to my childhood, this was my happy time camping with my family. Think about what is your happy time and make that possible, make that happen.
Yeah, I remember road trips. My dad always wanted to take us, even if it was just a short little road trip somewhere, and he loved to go for long walks, and we would take to parks, and I would feed the pigeons, or, it was just like simple things like that, It wasn't necessarily a big fancy trip because we didn't have that kind of money. We grew up with a family of 7 in New York City, and he wasn't making the money that people make nowadays. He wasn't, have that kind of job. But we always had what we needed. And the thing that I really remember, were the family gatherings. Like families back then would travel to come for holidays. Now everybody's busy, or they don't have time, or they don't have money, and they don't even see each other. And yet we had traveling from different states, and we didn't have like hotels per se. We just threw them wherever. Kids were sleeping on blankets on the floor, cutting them up in twin beds, laughing. These are the memories I have, and, you're correct in saying you have to think about those things. What do you remember from your childhood? We got a couple comments here. Dora says, hold those, our loved ones near and dear. She lost her son when he was 18, her only child. So we have to look at the preciousness of the moments that we actually have in life. She says one of the favorites was fishing with her mom. Yeah. A lot of people tend to look at things very differently. And I really think, COVID-19 kind of stopped us, like you stopped and I stopped way before. Stopped a lot of people to look at things. And at first there was maybe fear and panic and all that. And people lost their jobs or were on furlough. But then I'm watching how people are starting to look at things differently, and they're not wasting the money just throwing it away like you had mentioned.
Mhm.
Michelle says, in 2012, we bought our RV. Our home was destroyed from Hurricane Charlie. We traveled all over and we lived in that small space with children. I'm ready to do it again. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Cool.
That's
So,
amazing.
Daphne, what kind of expectations did you have going into this?
Well, of course, we all dream. And so, of course, I thought of a big happy family, sitting on the couch together or outside in the campfire. And, it was kind of thrown up in the air because of family dynamics. We hadn't worked on this connection in the past. So we did have to work through this. And it's funny to say because you may feel close to your partner or your children, but if you take everything away, all that outside distraction, you really see what you've been missing. And so, we did have to go through some, we did family meetings, we did some counseling as well, just to get us all on that same page because our communication was off as well. We spent so many years not truly connecting and communicating, and that is a big thing for a family. I found that family meetings, we hadn't been doing that. I always thought, oh, family meetings, that's such a silly idea. Why would you do that? The parents says this and that's what we're going to do. But when you're in a small space like that, you all need to be on the same page. And so I found that these family meetings that we didn't have them very often. We would sit down and the kids loved it, like to be a part of making, rules per se. What are your family rules? What can you contribute to the day, to help each other? Maybe, helping make breakfast. And each of us connect in different ways. Each of us if somebody wants to sit and read a book with you or spend time, or if somebody makes you, breakfast, a meal, that is connecting. And it's good to find out what each person, how they feel most connected. So during our family meetings, we found out because you may be thinking one thing, but they're thinking the other. So you're not communicating, connecting. So we just sat down on one page and that was amazing. So we did work through a lot and we still work through things every day. I mean, we're all growing and changing. So this is an ongoing thing. The same with minimalism. It's an ongoing thing. And you always are making sure that you're not bringing in things that you don't want, and you're always making sure you're connecting with your family.
So Tika has a really good question. She wants to know, what was the biggest challenge for you and your family with this transition?
I think the biggest challenge was that we had to work out. We couldn't just say, oh, I don't want to talk to you right now, go to your room or whatever. We had to actually work through it. So again, communication skills comes in, very important here. And also just realigning how we did our day as well. So we didn't, our schedule completely shifted. We started homeschooling, which we weren't homeschooling before. So that was a big dynamic with me and my children to learn how to homeschool. And I know a lot of people are going through this now.
What tips do you have for them? That's a really good topic, because not only did you have to do it, but in a small space, but you chose that lifestyle where a lot of parents right now are thrown into it. So what tips do you have for homeschooling? That's a really good topic here.
Yes, so that was one of our biggest hurdles. And I thought I was homeschooled as a child and loved it. And so I just assumed my children would love it as well. But I was wrong. I was mom, I wasn't their teacher. So we had to change that where you didn't have to have a specific teacher. Anyone can be your teacher, anything can be your teacher. So you have to kind of relearn what you've learned all your life. You don't have to have a specific person per se teaching you. You can learn in all and any ways. So I think you just need to take a step back and relax Your children are always learning. Don't worry. If they cannot get that math problem and you do not know how to do that new Common Core math, don't stress about it. Make it fun. Switch it up. If you like to cook, go in the kitchen, teach them fractions with making pancakes, and you're getting connection. So they're learning, you're learning, and you're connecting. That's the joy of homeschooling. You don't have to just sit in front of a computer or sit on a paper. You can interact and love your children and each other.
I love that. So did you have any family member actually resist this whole change that brought up maybe some other challenges?
Yes, we did, because some of my family, they're used to having a house, being secure and steady and safety, which many of us were brought up that way, that to be secure in this society and to be secure in life, you have a 9-to-5 job and you have a home. And not having that 9-to-5 job and not having a sticks and bricks home is a big change, and it's a big challenge to wrap your brain around this. So it was difficult to try to explain, that yes, we're uprooting our children from, a good school, we're uprooting them from a good neighborhood and, a nice house. And, but I think most people in my family have come to see how much, we enjoyed this and how much we connected. And some of them have even started traveling themselves. So
good. I like what you said towards the end of your story. The change was not about traveling and the scenery changing. It was that I felt released from expectation I had made for myself, my being in perfect control. Several of the authors actually have talked about letting go of control as well.
yeah.
So we seem to get our lessons in a lot of different ways, no matter what our experience is. So is there anything else that you feel is important to share to our viewers about this lifestyle?
Yes. Well, in regards to minimalism, anything you get rid of, you may have a moment of like, oh my gosh, why did I do that? Most things you can always buy again. So
If you really need it, yeah.
about this. Pardon?
I said, yeah, if you really you need it, yeah, absolutely.
Yes. So don't stress about it. And then also in this lifestyle of traveling, if you're worried about whether or not it'll work for you, I just encourage you even to take a month or 3 months, rent an RV and see if this works for you. It's a good time to be able to have fun with it. I mean, especially now, since most of us are working remotely and homeschooling or virtual schooling, you have this opportunity. So now, I always say now is the time, just make up your mind and do it. If you keep on hemming and hawing about it, it'll never get done, and you may look back in disappointment. So just go for it.
Dora says, fun yet? Laughing out loud. Yes.
Yes, definitely, Dora.
And it's really interesting. If we look at our home space, we generally only spend, a section of it, the majority of the time. We can have, a 2,000 square foot home, a 4,000 square foot home, whatever. But at it, we're probably only utilizing the majority of the time about 150 square feet.
Yes, exactly. Yep.
Yeah.
And then you have the beautiful wide outdoors, it's
Absolutely.
such a wonderful place. And my children love campfires now. They always loved it before, but that was a thing, to gather around a campfire, invite the neighbors from the campsite over. And we met some really, really unique and interesting and wonderful people that we're still connected to, and we still see on the road. So it's an amazing thing.
I had the opportunity to stay in RV to caretake it for about 9 days. A friend of mine has one parked on a piece of property and all. And Everything worked for me except for one thing. So this is something when I think about getting one, I will be mindful of this. Her bedroom was down a few steps,
Mm.
and you had to really crunch down back in so you didn't hit the bed. And then you got to make sure, especially if you're a tall person, that if you get up, you don't hit the ceiling
Yes.
up again. So that for me was not comfortable and easy, especially for my back.
Yeah.
I have to get to the bathroom fast,
Yeah. 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 I mean,
But,
there's different,
right.
RVs and options for everyone. I mean, maybe
But
it's
yeah.
renting a cabin or
Hmm.
something, if the RV isn't your thing, and yeah, if you have back issues, but like we researched a lot of RVs, and we found, one, my husband had back surgery right when we moved into the RV, so we had to make sure that we had a conducive sleep area for him.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And the rest of it, even though it was a nice size one, it wasn't as big as yours.
Mhm.
Fine. I mean, you had the kitchen area and stuff. You have all of your little amenities. I wasn't
Mhm.
missing anything at all. And because, like you said, there's the outdoors, and Dora's talking about too. She lives in one room right now
Oh yeah.
on a farm, and she's outside with the animals. And I know, watching her, because she's also been, shifting her life in many grand ways. Everything was kind of starting to change for her in so many ways. I watch her skin get better, her eyes get brighter. And
Yes.
so the connection with nature, and your children are so fortunate to have
Mhm.
a connection with nature, because so many kids don't. And there's a
Yeah.
lot to learn from nature, isn't there?
Oh yes. There is.
So what's the one thing that your kids love the most about this now? Do you ever talk about that? Like, guys, now that we did this, what's your favorite part of it?
Yes, I mean, they loved, actually, they loved how cold the water was in Oregon. They thought that was very interesting because we pretty much grew up in Middle Tennessee, and the water here is very warm and kind of murky, it's nice. There's some beautiful streams here in Tennessee, but when we were in Oregon, they just loved that cool, crisp feeling of it, and there was a ton of waterfalls, and just the nature there was wonderful. And we still are missing a few states we haven't been to.
I was
So
just going to ask you that. Which
yeah,
states you still have to go
so they're
explore?
excited to get back and fill up those states. We've been on a little bit of a pause here for a little bit, but we're going to go and finish up those other states here shortly, and we're excited about it. So
So
that was
which ones do you have to see yet? Which states are you going to go see?
Well, since we're from the East Coast, and it was kind of interesting, our main thing was to go and explore the West Coast. So we've seen most of the West Coast, but we have not seen a lot of the East Coast. So we would like to do that. Some of the upper, like Maine and
Oh, beautiful.
Vermont, and yes, all those beautiful spots. So that's our goal here in the next year or two.
Vermont and Massachusetts are my favorite places in the fall.
Yes,
Love,
yes.
love them in the fall. Yep, yep. So how long have you been doing this? How many years has it been?
It's been 3.5 years that we've been on the road full time. So it's been amazing. And it flew by. Our goal was 1 year, and we continued it
Wow.
for 3.5. So that shows you how much we enjoyed it.
So like, you go to different states, obviously you stop and stay for a bit.
Mhm.
What's the longest you stayed in one area, and why?
I think you cut out there. Do you mind repeating that? I'm sorry.
Sure. I says, you obviously go to all these different states. You stay
Mhm.
there for a while. What's the one place that you stayed a little bit longer, and why?
I'm trying to think of which one. Usually we stayed about a month in each spot just because we liked that, just to really get to know the area and the state. And it was just comfortable for us. We didn't want to be, packing up every week or two. We just liked that. We enjoyed that. And I know a lot of people that travel, they like to move every 1 to 2 weeks, but we did about a month in each.
Mm-hmm.
I think we ended up actually staying probably the longest in Texas, which I thought I would not want to. But it's actually such a big state. So when we're traveling through, to the West Coast. We've been through it several times. We end up staying all over Texas, and I actually kind of enjoyed Texas. And I never thought I would like that state, but there's some amazing landscape and people there and historical monuments that we got to see. So, but I believe it was because it took so long to drive through it. Such a great state.
So I bet your kids are getting a lot of history lessons besides earth science lessons.
Yeah.
What else are they learning?
Well, they've learned a lot of life skills because they have to see how we book these RV parks, the logistics of it. So they're right there watching us do this. They learn how to work closely with other people. So they also learn boundaries because even though we have the wide open space within an RV park, we still have to respect others' space. And so that was a learning curve for them. So they've learned boundaries, respect for others, and they've also learned to other people that may not speak our language either. In different parts of the country, there's people that haven't lived there very long, and so we learn to interact with those that aren't familiar with our American way of life. So that has been a good way for them to learn just how to get along with everyone.
Well, we're going to wrap this up now. So anybody that wants to know more about Beckoning Harmony and Daphne, it sounds all luxurious here right now, but you talk about some of the challenges in the stories here too. So Breakthrough is going to be releasing October 10th. So put that on your calendar and be sure to give Beckoning Harmony, Daphne's story, a good review on Amazon. So I have one last question for you. Doris says you're a wonderful mom. Yes, she is.
Thank you.
Do you think you guys will move back into a house real soon?
Well, actually, we've been talking about it. Currently, we've been staying in a rental because our RV had some damage to it from a hailstorm that we were in. And so we've been kind of hanging out in a rental home, and we're thinking about maybe for a few months renting out our RV and hanging out in the rental home, just as a change. And it's nothing big. We want to stay small. We love that small, just being connected as a family and not having, too much to upkeep. So we're kind of looking at maybe in the future doing half travel and half in a small home.
Yeah, those tiny homes are getting very popular now. People, funny, years ago, homes were small, and then they got bigger and bigger and humongous. People had to have bigger, and now they're going back down. And it's really interesting because I've been looking into the tiny homes myself too. And I chuckle because I'm like, oh, this is kind of like how we grew up, when. Well,
Exactly.
thank you for coming on and sharing your adventures. Carrie says, I'm so happy Daphne is back in Columbia, Tennessee.
Yes.
Wonderful. So yeah, you guys are friends, huh?
That's yes. And I'm so happy and honored that we're able to be in this book together. It was just a perfect timing, and I love it.
And all the stories in Breakthrough Wisdom of the Soul, they're all a little bit different. So while Daphne's sharing her life adventure on minimalism, the challenges she faced before, during, and still going on in life. But look at all the things, if you just jump on, go back, look at all the wonderful things that her family is gaining. And I think communication is key. I love that your children and your husband and you have really opened that up, because with so many things going on in life, often kids and parents don't have that opportunity, and then it creates other problems. So what a beautiful gift to give your family. So be sure to check out her story, Beckoning Harmony, and give her some love over there, because if you just jumped on and you didn't hear the beginning, she did have to go through some, challenges in life, like most of us do, before we say, okay, I need to change. I need to do something. And Doris says, yes, it's God's plan. Absolutely. It's God's plan. So we're going to say goodbye to Daphne. Okay. And for anybody who is interested in, being part of Collaborative Books, get a hold of me, because I would love to hear more about your ideas and what you want to put out there. And you might be the next author, just like Daphne, getting a message out to the world, So have a beautiful day, everybody. Bless you all. And Daphne, thanks again for stopping by.
Thank you. Yes, thank you so much.
Okay, everybody. So if you have questions about publishing your own book, you can check out my website down below. And I am a story development coach. So what that means, if you have fear about writing, you're overwhelmed, you don't know how to do grammar or anything else, don't worry about it. We got you covered. And just like Daphne and all the others that are in our next book, their stories developed over time. So have a beautiful day, everybody, and we'll see you again soon.